Link TV, connecting you to the world. Link TV is viewer supported. Watch more at linktv.org.
Link TV presents Mosaic World News from the Middle East. Here are today's top stories.
Israel and Palestinians resume direct talks. Pakistani Taliban claim responsibility for Lahore blasts. And Lebanese army arrests 24 Sudanese citizens. Mosaic World News from the Middle East begins now.
In Washington, direct talks between the Palestinians and the Israelis were officially announced in a ceremonial gathering that was attended by the Israeli Prime Minister, the Palestinian President, the Egyptian President, and the Jordanian monarch, along with President Obama.
President Mahmoud Abbas called on the Israelis to freeze all settlement activities, saying that it's possible to reach a solution within 1 year. On the other hand, Benjamin Netanyahu urged the Palestinian president to achieve what he described as an historic compromise, avoiding any reference to a Palestinian state.
Mohammed Al-Alami reports on the atmosphere surrounding the launch of direct talks.
بعد محادثات ثنائية مع كل من ضيوفه الأربعة جاء دور المضيف.
After holding bilateral talks with each of his 4 guests, it was his turn to pose for a historic picture, reflecting on moments of peace made possible by Sadat, King Hussein, Begin, and Rabin.
Now, like each of them, we must ask ourselves, do we have the wisdom and courage to walk on the path to peace?
The Egyptian president, who said that he experienced war and peace, offered simple advice to the Israelis.
I tell the Israelis to seize this opportunity and not to let it out of their hands. Make comprehensive peace your goal and extend your hand to meet the Arab hand that is extended for peace.
However, this Arab hand, which has been extended for years, was not enough to bring back Jerusalem or the refugees, or freeze the settlement activities. This advice did not prevent the Israeli Prime Minister from talking about the security issue.
I will not let the terrorists block.
I will not let the terrorists block our path to peace. But as these events underscore once again, peace must be anchored in security.
The Palestinian president, who condemned the attacks in Hebron and Ramallah, said that he doesn't want any drop of blood to be shed by the Israelis or the Palestinians, and that he doesn't want anything short of peace.
Let's sign an agreement, a final agreement for peace, and put a final end to a very long period of struggle.
However, the benchmarks for peace have not changed much since the Madrid conference or since the Ramadan iftar was held at the White House. Forging this type of peace requires a strong U.S. presidency, moderate Israeli politicians, as well as a unified and powerful Palestinian leadership, factors that seem to be missing in this latest attempt to forge a stubborn peace settlement in the Middle East region. Mohammed Al-Alami, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Mohammed Al-Alami from Washington will stay with us.
Mohammed, what's going on behind the scenes regarding the direct talks?
تساؤلات هل رئيس الوزراء الإسرائيلي جدي بالفعل وأنه
Many questions are being raised. Is the Israeli Prime Minister serious? Does he have, theoretically speaking, to say the least, what it takes to forge a real peace deal?
إسرائيل أمام يسار متراجع وبإمكانه
He is left alone, torn between retreating leftists and his government's Kadima coalition. Some believe that the Israeli Prime Minister wants to take part in the talks in order to portray himself as a man of peace. The aim is to uphold his friendship with the U.S. in order to target Iran.
مظهر رجل السلام فقط الحفاظ على صداقة الولايات المتحدة لاستهداف إيران.
The direct talks will formally open in 2 hours. All these fiery speeches that were made yesterday will be put up to the test. Is peace, from the standpoint of the Israeli Prime Minister, similar to that lobbied for by the Palestinians, the Arabs, or even the Americans?
I believe that the talks must move forward, but I don't think they will help end the conflict. The reason has to do with the makeup of our government, which is formed in a strange way. The Prime Minister usually endures pressure from the right wing. I don't think that any resolutions will be made soon, as this issue requires many years to solve.
There will never be peace. Both sides don't want to offer concessions. No one from either side has the ability to make decisions. There are no leaders on either side who can forge peace.
I hope that the talks will lead to peace after these long years. We must believe in that. Otherwise, we will not continue to exist in this region.
I'm optimistic. I'm sure that the talks will produce positive results and that peace will follow quickly.
This is a waste of time. First, the Palestinians must elect a leader who we can talk to. They're still divided.
To my knowledge and my idea.
To my knowledge and idea, they don't like us and they don't trust us. By the same token, we don't trust them either. Therefore, peace will not be possible.
Ever since Israel rejected negotiating with the Palestinians, unless within a joint Jordanian delegation, as in the Madrid conference of 1991, and until today, the negotiations had been constantly going through different rounds in which positions were altered. That changed when the establishment of a Palestinian state became a recognizable issue. But the dispute lies in the details. The following report highlights the main negotiations in which the right to decide the Palestinian fate was discussed with Israeli delegations.
How is it going, Mr. President?
في العام 2000 في كامب ديفيد طرح حق تقرير المصير للفلسطينيين.
For the very first time in 2000 at Camp David, the right to determine the fate of the Palestinians was officially proposed in negotiations with Israel. The two sides agreed to the principle of establishing an independent Palestinian state. However, the disagreement revolved around the percentage of land exchanged, Israel's annexation of Palestinian land, and sovereignty over the noble sanctuary, in addition to details related to the refugees.
المقترحات التي لم يتفق عليها الطرفان كهذه حيث تظهر الدولة الفلسطينية المقترحة.
This is what the map of the proposals that the two sides did not agree on looks like. It shows the proposed Palestinian state chopped into different regions and separated by settlements and regions under Israeli sovereignty. 4 months after the Camp David discussions ended and during the transitional period between the presidencies of Clinton and George Bush in December 2000, the American president came back with a solution that was rejected by both sides. Clinton proposed that the Palestinian state include 94 to 96% of the territories of the West Bank and 100% of Gaza's territories, in addition to proposing a passageway between the West Bank and Gaza and a land exchange. Clinton proposed a solution for Jerusalem, leaving Arab neighborhoods to the Palestinians and the Jewish neighborhoods to the Hebrew state, while leaving negotiations over the details for a later date. Clinton also proposed to guarantee the refugees' right of return to the Palestinian state, which would be established without ruling out that Israel could accept the return of a specific number of refugees. Clinton's proposal came as Israel was embarking on legislative elections, and the American president was proposing a solution only 1 month before his departure from the White House. The Palestinians saw the proposal as unclear and thought that there was not enough time to negotiate before the end of Clinton's term. Then, 8 years passed before the Annapolis conference was held, in which the two sides conducted nearly 300 negotiation sessions.
انقضت 8 سنوات لينعقد مؤتمر أنابوليس وأتم الطرفان نحو 300.
Olmert proposed to return 100% of the territories that were occupied in 1967. Israel would take 6.5% of the West Bank and in return would offer 6% of Israel's territory, in addition to proposing a passage that would connect Gaza to the West Bank through Israel.
إضافة إلى ممر يربط غزة بالضفة الغربية عبر إسرائيل.
This time, the negotiations were interrupted by Israel's war on Gaza in December 2008, and Olmert resigned from his post over corruption charges, and the negotiations were not resumed. Hani Abu Ayash, Al Arabiya.
In response to last night's murders, the Yesha Settlers Council has announced that from its point of view, the building moratorium in the settlements ends this evening at 6 p.m. They say the construction will begin in 3 locations, a kindergarten in Kdumim, a sports center in Adam, and a residence in Beit Chagai, near the home of the murdered family there. Joining me now in the studio is Eve Harrow, a spokesperson for the Yesha Settlers Council. Thanks so much for coming in this evening, Ms. Harrow. First, your reaction to last night's attack.
Sick feeling. Here we go again. More orphans, more widows. We've been here before. Every single time that we start these so-called peace talks, this is what happens. It's like a nightmare is returning.
Eve, several right-wing Knesset members are demanding that Netanyahu return home immediately and not enter into any direct peace talks. What's your view on that?
I think that he has to go there and remember who he's representing, the people that he's representing. And I'm not just talking about the people of Judea and Samaria, I'm talking about the people of Israel. And that our mandate is to fight evil wherever it is. And that by going there and being weak and saying, well, that this terror attack is not going to stop us from our goals, you make peace with the people, not with the leaders. He's going to sit there with some leaders. But we see that the people living here, the Palestinian people here, are nowhere near ready for the kind of peace that we all desire. And he's got to remember that no matter what is mouthed there in Washington.
Eve, we just reported that Yesha Settler Council said that from 6 o'clock this evening they're going to resume building 3 specific locations they've mentioned. It's a fairly toned-down end of the building freeze, is it not?
It is. The building freeze needed to come to an end anyway. It was immoral and probably illegal because it was only on the Jews. It wasn't that everybody in Judea and Samaria was told to stop building until we figured out who was where and what was going to be. Only the Jews weren't allowed to build, and Arabs have been building illegally already for years, and they, of course, continue to do so this year. So that building freeze had to end because it's simply not fair. And so this is, I think, a very humane and decent way of a response to terror as well that we're going to build. We're going to choose life.
Sources with the Prime Minister in Washington, senior sources, are saying they will not allow settlers to violate the government decision on the building freeze. What's your response to that?
Our response is that Bibi said it was a temporary 10-month thing, and he wants our trust, so we want to believe him. We're not the only ones watching to see if he is believable. The people on the other side of the table from him are also looking to see. If he breaks his word to his own people, maybe they'll think that he'll break his word to them. Not a very good beginning to peace talks, is it?
Isn't there a real danger, though, that instead of focusing on the threat of additional terror attacks in the territory, security forces will now be involved in clashes with the settlers and the beginning of the building?
I hope not. And the reason that we have a problem with security now in Judea and Samaria is because a lot of the roadblocks have been taken away by the request of the American president as goodwill gestures. And once again, those goodwill gestures have been met with Jewish blood being shed. And so I think instead of being concerned with that and with local people who justifiably want to continue with their lives, some of those roadblocks and some of the measures that we had in place, which is why we had years of quiet, need to be reinstated.
We just have a very short time left for one last question.
Sure.
In just under an hour now, Prime Minister Netanyahu sits down for his private meeting with President Obama ahead of the direct talks with the Palestinians. What's your message to Prime Minister Netanyahu?
I know he's worried about Iran. I know he'll do almost anything to stop that genocidal maniac from destroying the world as we know it. But he has to remember that giving into terror and giving into violence just emboldens people who think like that. And this, in a very microcosm way, what happened yesterday is a big message to that. And he's got to keep that in mind. We're all relying on him. The Jewish people are relying on him.
Yesterday, American forces began the final stage of its military presence in Iraq, following its official announcement of the end of combat operations. A new commander of the American forces took over from General Ray Odierno as the mission changed to a train and advise assignment. The handover ceremony took place in the Nasser base west of the Iraqi capital. Our reporter in Iraq, Rula Al-Ayyubi, said that the ceremony took place without much commotion for the Iraqi citizens.
The ceremony included the American and Iraqi national anthems and an official Iraqi representative, but no handover took place between the two countries. It was merely an announcement of the new leadership of the American forces that are staying in Iraq.
After all that Iraqis endured, we understand their deeply felt desire to control their own lives, determine their own fate, and maintain their own security. That's why we kept President Bush's commitment to withdraw our forces forces from Iraqi cities last summer, how President Obama has now kept his promise, made 1 month after we took office, to end our combat mission and draw down to a force of 50,000.
Today's handover ceremony was a purely American event that passed by Iraqis as any other day in the past 6 months, awaiting the formation of the government.
We need a government of national partnership that includes all the existing political parties, a government that represents all the parties and all the political blocs.
The problem is a matter of security. Once they withdraw, there will not be any security. They have not withdrawn yet, and Iraq's provinces have seen a lot of explosions. How are we supposed to have security once the American forces leave, when there is no government?
You're now using this bus to go to Karada. Do you feel safe using public transportation?
Honestly, it's not, but everyone relies on God.
The symbolic site and the timing of the event explain everything. The exchange took place at noon, Baghdad time, in a former Saddam Hussein palace, an image that U.S. officials wanted Americans to see first when they wake up. Rula Al-Alyoubi, BBC, Baghdad.
At least 130 people were killed and 180 others were wounded in 3 bombings that targeted a Shia procession in the city of Lahore in eastern Pakistan. Pakistani officials said that 2 of the explosions were suicide bombings. The Pakistani government has promised to go after the planners of the attack, which is the first to take place in the country since the destructive floods hit last month. Generally, these attacks carry the Taliban movement's fingerprints.
Within minutes, this normal procession turned into massive chaos caused by acts of violence. These few minutes were enough to produce this level of fear.
3
bombings targeted a Shia procession in Lahore as they were mourning the assassination of Imam Ali, the first of the Shia's 12 founding imams.
I saw the flames behind me, close to the traffic lights. The smoke was covering everything. People were running. They were terrified. It seemed as if it was the resurrection.
The head of the Lahore police told the BBC that at least 2 suicide bombers blew themselves up. According to officials, the first explosion took place as the procession was ending before sunset. Only a few minutes later, a suicide bomber blew himself up near the site where food was distributed to the fasters. Then another suicide bomber blew himself up at the end of the march. As victims were transported to the hospital, the procession's participants realized the magnitude of their loss.
I lost 3 children. I lost everything. My 3 children were martyred.
Since the Shia are being targeted in Pakistan by Al-Qaeda or the Taliban movement through affiliated groups, Pakistani Prime Minister Mohammad Reza Gilani promised in a statement to hold those responsible for the attacks accountable. These promises come as the power of these groups keeps on increasing, according to some major powers. Shortly afterward, a confrontation between police and the procession's participants ensued as an expression of their anger over the government's failure to stop these attacks, a government that has been enduring consecutive crises. Over here lies the ghost of the Taliban movement that wants to get rid of a government that is loyal to the Americans. And over there lies the ghost of the floods, with millions of refugees with no shelter 1 month after the worst natural disaster in the country's history hit. Ola Maki, BBC.
NATO forces in Afghanistan have killed at least 16 civilians over the past 24 hours. 10 civilians have been killed in a NATO airstrike in the northern Takhar province. The Afghan government says the victims were election campaign workers. President Hamid Karzai has strongly condemned the attack. Earlier on Wednesday, 6 civilians were killed and several others injured in another aerial attack in the southern province of Kandahar. Witnesses say most of the victims were women and children. But according to local officials, some Taliban militants were also targeted. Large numbers of Afghans have been killed during NATO's air and ground operations since the US-led invasion 9 years ago. Foreign forces claim they accidentally hit civilians while hunting down Taliban militants. Well, earlier, our correspondent in Kabul, Faiz Khurshid, told us more about the Afghan government's reaction to the incident.
Right after President Hamid Karzai learned about these latest civilian deaths, he came out with harsh words against NATO forces with a statement strongly condemning these civilian deaths that have been caused by the foreign military operations and airstrikes in the north and southern Afghanistan. And he called once again on the new U.S. Commander General David Petraeus to avoid civilian deaths. People here in Afghanistan are very angry over mounting civilian deaths, and undoubtedly, these mounting civilian deaths by the foreign military operations have greatly turned the Afghan people against the military presence of the U.S. and NATO forces in this country. That's why the Afghan people are calling on their President Hamid Karzai to find out another approach to this war, because those who are stationed in this country, they mean the foreign troops, they continue killing innocent Afghan civilians. And now many here in Afghanistan do not make any differentiation between the Taliban and Al-Qaeda as the US and NATO forces, and they describe the foreign troops stationed in this country as the killers of the innocent.
وكانت قيادة الجيش أصدرت بيانا جاء فيه بتاريخ 31.
The Lebanese Military Command Center has issued the following statement. On August 31, 2010, two members of the Jafar clan abducted two Polish tourists from Baalbek and led them to an unknown destination. The army immediately heightened security measures at the military checkpoints scattered around the area. Soldiers opened fire at the abductors, killing one when they failed to stop their car at a checkpoint in the area of Wadi Fisan. The army identified the deceased as Rashid Rida Jafar, saying that the other abductor remained at large. According to the statement, the two Polish citizens were taken to the army barracks in the area of Abla to help with the investigation. The army deployed additional units in the area in pursuit of the fleeing suspects. The Lebanese intelligence agency has arrested 24 Sudanese suspects on charges of infiltrating the Lebanese territory via Syria with the aid of two Lebanese.
The Lebanese 2nd Intervention Force Regiment has carried out a wide-scale manhunt in the Kafr Zabad farms in pursuit of Sudanese infiltrators believed to be hiding there. 8 of the suspects were arrested after a brief pursuit and exchange of fire in a nearby field. The operation was attributed to the intelligence division of the Lebanese forces in the Shtura square. Some of the suspects were arrested as they tried to head to Beirut in a van. After questioning them, the suspects confessed to illegally entering the country, informing on 9 others believed to be in hiding in a farm near the town of Kafr Zabad. As army units arrived at the farm in pursuit of the suspects, a 12-year-old Lebanese boy secured an exit for them. The army launched a manhunt operation which finally led to the arrest of the suspects. With this, the number of Sudanese detainees stands at 24. In addition, 4 Lebanese were arrested, namely the van's owner and his aide, the farm's owner, and the juvenile.
The Lebanese Maronite Bishop Council has expressed regret over the Burj Abi Haidar incidents and called on the authorities to limit chaos as well as the use of weapons on the streets.
In a meeting presided over by Maronite Patriarch Nasrallah Boutros Sver in Diman, the Maronite Bishop Council expressed regret over the tragic incident of Burj Abi Haidar. Sver called on the authorities to limit the chaotic use of weapons on the streets of Beirut. The Council also voiced hope that the direct Israeli-Palestinian peace talks will reach a just and final solution that will help end the chronic tragedy of the Palestinian nation.
The direct talks between the Palestinians and the Israelis will soon begin, under U.S. auspices. We hope that the negotiators will reach a just and final solution that will help end the chronic tragedy of the Palestinian nation.
The Council said that Lebanon is unequivocally concerned about the peace talks, particularly over the issue of Palestinian refugees, who may be stripped of their right to return or may be subjected to naturalization in their countries of residence, which all Lebanese reject because it violates the constitution.
The Emirate of Dubai is hosting an exhibition during the months of Ramadan that includes 99 artworks, manuscripts, and paintings that recount the history of Islamic art. More details in the following report.
A
new exhibition held in Dubai during the month of Ramadan showcases mixed media artifacts dating back to the cultures of Mesopotamia, Persia, and the Ottoman Empire. Most of the art is Islamic, some is secular. Emily Farr, the director of the exhibition that includes pieces from the Farjam collection for artistic exhibits in Dubai, said that the displayed articles do not follow a specific chronological sequence, but were collected to display the history of Islamic art from various perspectives.
It was worked out to...
The exhibition was worked out to show the diversity of Islamic art. We chose a number of displays that cover a broad geographical and historical scope. In addition, it features a variety of mediums. So we have a wide-ranging collection, starting with Islam's first era and extending until the beginning of the 20th century.
In a special corner inside a glass display case, the exhibition holds part of a handwritten manuscript from Baghdad that dates back to the 10th century. This is one of the oldest pieces on display.
It was a challenge to narrow it down.
This is one of the oldest pieces on display here. It is an image of a manuscript. The complete manuscript is composed of various similar images. It is one of the oldest calligraphic forms that were used to record the Quran. It is in the Kufic script, which is very horizontal, so it consumes a lot of space.
واختيرت القطع الفنية من بين مقتنيات قاعة فاغرام ورتبها طلاب من جامعة زايد في الإمارات.
The artifacts were chosen from the Farjam collection and arranged by students from Zayed University in the Emirates under the direction of the exhibition's organizers. On one of the exhibit's walls, a large and heavy curtain was mounted. It is said that it originates from the grave of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. It features Quranic verses that were written in gold and silver threads. It was created during the era of the Ottoman Empire. The exhibition also includes a number of rare archaeological pieces, among them textiles, ceramics, jewelry, and metalworks, highlighting their exceptional craftsmanship.
The views expressed on Mosaic are from contributing broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible from support of viewers like you. Thank you. Watch Mosaic World News online. Stay up to date with breaking news. Read our blog. Get transcripts of past shows and more at linktv.org/mosaic.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs, programs which connect you to the world.